welcome back to another episode of Deep Thoughts. And today, I am really freaking excited because it's finally time to talk about Given. I have had this one on my radar for a while now. I was really freaking excited for Given, and I don't know, it's just nice to finally have the first episode before our eyes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about episode 1, Boys in the Band. So as always, we are going to go from the top of the episode to the bottom, kind of go through all of my thoughts in order. If you want just my quick, my in a minute, if you will, thoughts on it, it's friggin' dope. It's everything I wanted it to be, probably even a little bit more. Lurch knocked it out of the park, if you want just my quick thoughts on it. But if you want my deep thoughts on it, well, the MC, Sato, we start off the episode and we see that he is a doggo owner, and plays the guitar. So, I'm sure most people just assume that he's perfect right off the bat because of that. I did have that thought of I don't know why, but I was just like, he plays the guitar and he likes dogs. Like, oh, what a perfect catch. But that was my first thought when I saw it. I was like, wow, they really want you to like this guy. And I mean, I do. Sato's really fun, but again, we'll get into it. I do think there's, just based off the first, maybe 3 episodes of this, of the show, I do think that there's going to be a lot more to Sato than meets the eye. I don't think he's quite as bubbly and absent-minded as he portrays himself to be, especially given that we see his, of course, tragic backstory, because we always need a tragic backstory. But the snapping of the guitar strings, that did feel like some really solid, if slightly cheesy symbolism. But that is something I think the show does really well, is not just symbolism, but this whole element of show, don't tell. And we will see that as we go through the episode. But yeah, I was really impressed with Sato's introduction as quickly as we get through his quick little, from him leaving his house to him getting to school. It was really well handled. I was genuinely again, it is slightly cheesy, the guitar chords snapping as maybe his heart breaks or his heart snaps or something like that. It's slightly cheesy, but I'm kind of all about it, and that's kind of my thing, and I love me some symbolism, so I appreciated it. You know what else I appreciated about this episode? Yuen no Yama. Whatever. I'm terrible with pronunciation, y'all know this, but Yuen no Yama comes across as, I wrote here that he came across as well-liked, but distant, and quite tired, maybe bored of his day-to-day, ? And yeah. That is exactly what this character is. Yuen no Yama has a serious case of the Saitamas, where he struggled. We see his struggle too. It's not just he says it to another character while we look at stills of them talking. No, we flash back. We see how he went from just a total novice, using a hand-me-down guitar, which is the most. I think the most good people probably start playing instruments with a hand-me-down. And the fact that he gets a hand-me-down guitar from his dad, I think that was a nice touch. And you know what else I liked about this this introduction to Yuen no Yama is the references. The references here are pretty cheeky. There's a reference, I think they called it instead of Arctic monkeys, it was artistic monkeys, and I'm like, are you for real? Okay, I see what you did there. It's not as fun as band references in something say JoJo's. In JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, it's they're not even references. They're blatantly named, the stands are blatantly named after bands, but it's fun, and you're like, oh, cool. Red Hot Chili Pepper is exactly what you would imagine the stand of Red Hot Chili Pepper to look like, but. Here, it's not exactly referencing them for fun, and I do feel the references make a lot more sense given the context of the show as opposed to JoJo's, and that's not a knock against JoJo's before anybody gets all hubbub. I think the references in JoJo's, they just serve two different purposes, right? In JoJo's, it's meant to be fun and goofy and zany and just a fun way for Araki to incorporate his love of music. In Given, it's a given that the characters would reference people like Keith Richards, because of course they would. They're in a rock band, and it makes sense. And I do think it's weird that they directly reference Keith Richards by name, but the Arctic Monkeys is Artistic Monkeys, unless I read that wrong. Now I gotta double check, because now I feel like maybe I'm making it up. Nope, I was right. I'm looking at it right now. Artistic Monkeys. Why? Why did I just call it Arctic Monkeys? Whatever. You know what? I know I said that I'm gonna go from the top to the bottom, but I just have a lot of emotions that are connecting to each other in this, so I'm not really gonna go in order anymore, because the referencing to well-established like musicians reminded me of something else about the show that I really liked, and that is the fact that, like, in here the references go towards making the show feel more grounded and real. And oh my god, does the show feel like the setting feels lived in. It feels like these characters have existed for a long time before the show. And I know that seems like a weird compliment, but I feel like so very few shows do this. Like, in most shows, I get the feeling like the universe just snapped into being at the start of the show. It's hard to make a setting feel lived in like they do here. You've probably heard Super Eye Patch Wolf say this, but like environment design is huge. And like when we see like shots of Ueno's room, or like what the classroom looks like, and like the dynamics between these characters, it makes the world feel much more lived in. And it feels like the show doesn't begin, like the show's story doesn't like suddenly, like the world of the show doesn't blink in and out of existence depending on whether or not the characters are hanging out. It feels like the characters actually have lives outside of each other and the band. And I really friggin' appreciate that. Like the fact that we see Uenoyama not only interact with Sato, which is of course probably the main draw for everybody, is like these two characters, because let's be real, it's a shonen ai, and they are definitely gonna end up together in some way, shape, or form. But the show doesn't feel like it begins in the show's world, rather, doesn't feel like it just snaps into being whenever these two are together. It feels like all these characters actually have have lives outside, like Kaji, the drummer, or Kaiji. I don't remember if it was Kaji or Kaiji, but the drummer actually is a co-worker of Uenoyama. They work at the same store, and we see that later on in the episode, and you're like, oh wow, like that's how they must have met, like, and that's really interesting. And speaking of Kaiji, or Kaji, sorry, I forget, we also get the added bonus that he actually dated Uenoyama's sister at one point. So we already have these pre-established relationships that show that these characters have known each other a lot longer than this, like just the beginning of the show. Obviously, Sato and Uenoyama only met at the beginning of the show, but hey, that's fine. Like we already established that the band has known each other a while. We get the idea that the band has probably had extended drama before this and will likely have drama after this, because of course they're gonna. But it makes the world feel so genuine. And you know what was a genuine relief? Was the actual music, like the actual band practice. I was worried it was gonna come across looking like weird. Like I thought it would look like stiff, because there was a band, like a show about a rock band not that long ago where the animation looked garbage. I cannot remember the name of the show right now, and I probably won't by the time I edit this, because that's how forgettable it was. But I do remember the animation looking stiff as hell in that show, and I was so worried about that. But here I was relieved to see that the animation on the band practice was genuinely pretty cool. It's like it felt very lively. The instruments are clearly CG, and like that's fine, because the characters themselves remain 2D, and it does clash a little bit. Like you can kind of tell that the instruments are 2D or 3D and that the characters are 2D. But the way that the characters like bounce around while they're playing, and like they're really getting into it, like they bob their head, they turn their head as they play, or they like hum along as they're playing, and like they turn around and look at each other and all this stuff. It doesn't just feel static. It feels like there's a lot of motion, there's a lot of excitement and liveliness to the band practice. And yeah, I just thought that was a big relief for me. I was like, because don't get me wrong, part of me is watching this because it's a shonen ai, but another part of me is watching this because it's a show about music, and I was really excited to see how the actual like playing of the music would look, and it's pretty cool. And ironically speaking of cool, see how it's all connecting, I love that the song itself wasn't anything like mind-blowing, but it was fun and catchy, and like Sato asked for, cool. It was just a cool sound. I don't know, man. I'm already shipping it. Even Haruki, the bassist, he's already shipping it. And by the way, Haruki is friggin'... Kaji looks cool, the drummer. He looks cool. He's like a punk rock version of Sosuke from Free, which is now the second time I've mentioned Sosuke from Free in a season which he is not in. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch my Astra videos. But yeah, Kaji or Kaiji, he's cool, but Haruki, he looks cool, but like more suave, and he kind of looks like a fusion of Tulio and Miguel from El Dorado. Like, tell me he doesn't kind of look like that. But the reason I bring up Haruki is because he also ships these two as much as I already do. This is gonna hurt. Like, I get the feeling like my soul is gonna get crushed because I feel like there's some drama coming, but I already shipped these two. I'm in, man. I'm sold. The only thing I didn't like about this episode was that weird smoke effect at the end, like where he calls them all like really cool, and this like smoke effect like blows up, but there's no like real sound effect following it. It just sort of like poofs into existence, and I'm like, okay, that was kind of a weird. It's a weird note to end on. It just felt kind of cheap. I was like, okay, that's a little weird. It's too bad because it's preceded by another moment of show don't tell, where Sato, you see like bandages on his fingers, so he very clearly like hurt his fingers while changing the strings on his guitar. And I don't know if you guys have, if anybody watching has had to change strings on a guitar or ukulele or any sort of stringed instrument. If those things snap back at you, you can kiss your fingers goodbye. Okay, not really, but like it hurts like a sumbitch. So seeing him like have his fingers bandaged up shows like that he means like that he's committed. He wants to learn how to play guitar. Or maybe that like it's just like the fact, and it's never like he doesn't say like, yeah, I hurt my fingers trying to change the strings, but I wanted to do it, blah blah blah. He just says, I changed the strings on my guitar and look, I can strum and I can like play a note. But like it's never addressed that he hurt himself. It's shown, Ueno notices it, and then that's it. And it's really cool. So the fact that happens, and then it's followed by that weird smoke effect, I was like, okay, that looks kind of cheap, but I will give you a pass because the rest of the episode is really genuinely phenomenal. And the ending is cute, and bonus points for the doggo because I love the doggo, but it just feels weird that there's an ending with this like chill ass piano in a show about a rock band. But I mean, cute doggo, so it's good by default because that's a good boy or a good girl. I don't know what the doggo's gender is. But I do know that the ending is cute. I just probably wouldn't have picked this particular ending for this particular show. That said, though, everybody, those are going to be basically my thoughts on Given. This went a little longer than I had anticipated, but I think it's a given that I'm going to give Given. And I want to give it an A+ really bad, but that cheap effect and the ending's doesn't quite. I'm gonna give it a strong A, like very close to an A+. An A+ to me is a perfect episode, and I do have those two hiccups, so I can't, which kind of breaks my heart. I want to give it an A+, but it's gonna get an A. I really friggin' recommend checking out Given, though. This is a strong premiere. With that said, though, everybody, if you enjoyed today's video, then by all means hitting that like button, sharing the video around on the internet, that would be super rad of you. And if you're new to the channel and you want to check out more from me, then by all means go ahead and hit that subscribe button, ring that bell to join the good ones. And as always, before we go, I have to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Dominic, Urza, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Omner Garamond, Opinionated Slime, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Tristan, and Veridin. Thank you guys so much for your continued support over on Patreon. I really friggin' appreciate it, and double thank you for all of you who have been supporting these videos. The channel has been growing exponentially lately. I cannot thank you guys enough. It's really friggin' cool. And with that said, everybody, until our next meeting, you stay rad and don't scary.